Ever get that little rush of excitement, when you're tracking a package, watching that delivery estimate get closer?
Oh, absolutely.
But now, imagine you're the one making sure millions of those deliveries arrive perfectly. No pressure.
Right.
That's the daily life of a packaging production manager, and we're going deep into their world today. Our guide is the data from our friends at RoleCatcher.
And it is about the scale. You're right to highlight that. It's not just one product. They're thinking about thousands of lipsticks arriving without a scratch or, smartphones surviving the journey to the customer's hand. That kind of scale.
So we're going way beyond just like the image of boxes and bubble wrap,
Yeah.
right? What does this job actually involve? Because I feel like most of us only think about packaging when it goes wrong.
Exactly. And that's the irony of it. Their success is invisible. A good packaging production manager, you never even know they were there because you didn't have a problem. It's part engineering, knowing how strong each material is, but then also anticipating the real world. How's this going to be stacked on a truck? What if the delivery driver's having a bad day?
So they need like a crystal ball to predict every pothole and every, mishandled package along the way.
That's right.
What I find fascinating is this sounds like a career in huge demand. Online shopping's exploding, so someone's got to manage all that packaging.
Absolutely. And the data backs that up. The Bureau of Labor Statistics projects 7% growth over the next decade. That's faster than a lot of other fields.
Yeah.
And it shows how essential this role is, even if people don't think about it every day.
Okay, so let's picture the day-to-day for these unsung heroes of the delivery chain. I'm imagining a lot of chaos, maybe some forklifts barely missing them as they're trying to design packaging.
It's less about constant action and more about strategic problem solving. They might be analyzing data on damaged shipments in the morning, then brainstorming eco-friendly packaging designs with the engineering team that afternoon.
So, data-driven, but also requiring a creative side. You don't see that combo too often. Now, for someone considering this career path, what are some of the unexpected pros and cons they should be aware of?
A huge pro is the impact. These managers directly affect a company's bottom line. A small tweak to the packaging could save millions of materials or shipping, boosting the whole company's performance.
Okay, but big wins usually come with big pressure, right? I imagine deadlines in this field are insane, and there's no room for error when you're manufacturing at such a large scale.
Yeah, and that's a major con. The buck stops with them. Any delay or mistake, it just snowballs. Plus, they have to keep up with every new technology. 3D printing, bioplastics, it's a fast-paced field.
It's not just cardboard boxes anymore.
No, not at all.
Now, I know our listeners might be at all different stages in their careers, some just starting out, others may be thinking of making a switch. So let's break down how a career in this field might actually progress.
Well, a common entry point is a packaging production assistant role.
Yeah.
It's where you'd cut your teeth, doing things like basic packaging design based on the product requirements, maybe running some quality control on the materials they use.
So say there's a high-end makeup brand, right? And they're launching a new eyeshadow palette. Would the assistant be the one testing different cushioning materials to make sure those delicate powders don't turn to dust?
That's exactly it. They'd be looking at impact resistance, how well it absorbs vibrations, even how that material interacts with the product itself chemically.
Mm-hmm.
They sweat the small stuff so the customer doesn't have to.
Okay, so you've learned the ropes as an assistant, you move up the ladder. What's next?
Usually that next step is packaging production coordinator.
Yeah.
Now you're getting into more project management, overseeing different production stages, keeping things on track and on schedule.
More responsibility, definitely. I imagine you need to juggle a lot more at that level.
100%. That's where being super organized is key. They'll be coordinating with suppliers, managing all the materials in inventory, putting out any fires that pop up during production.
Okay, so you've done the assistant role, mastered coordination, but let's say you're really passionate about the technical side of packaging. Where do you go from there?
That's when you might become a senior packaging engineer. That's where you need that deep technical knowledge, but also those creative problem-solving skills really come into play.
So at this level, you're not just working with existing designs anymore. You're actually innovating, pushing the boundaries of what packaging can be, right?
Absolutely. They're the ones experimenting with things like biodegradable plastics, figuring out how to use the absolute least amount of material for each product, always reading up on the latest advancements in the field.
I bet that's a challenging role, but also incredibly rewarding, especially for someone who really geeks out over the technical stuff and wants to make a difference on the sustainability front. But let's say you've climbed to the top of the mountain. You're the packaging production manager. What does that ultimate responsibility look like?
At that point, it's all about the big picture. You're not thinking about individual products anymore. You're setting the entire packaging strategy for the whole company, making sure it aligns with their overall goals, budget, and of course their sustainability commitments, which are more important than ever these days.
Sounds like a real balancing act, making sure the product is protected, keeping costs down, but also meeting those constantly evolving sustainability standards. You'd need nerves of steel for that job.
100%. It's high pressure for sure, but the rewards are there too. You know that the choices you make have a real impact, not just on the company's bottom line, but also on the environment and on the experience every customer has with their products.
So we've got this career path, high stakes, high reward. What specific knowledge does someone need to truly thrive as a packaging production manager?
Well, you absolutely have to understand the industry standards and regulations inside and out. Labeling requirements, safety regulations, especially for things like food or hazardous materials, and then all the environmental compliance rules, which are constantly changing.
So it's not as easy as just picking a sturdy box and calling it a day. There's a whole legal and ethical side to navigate too.
Exactly. For instance, did you know a responsible packaging production manager will consider things like bioaccumulation if certain plastics aren't disposed of properly, or how labeling laws differ in different countries? Those details, if you get them wrong, it can mean big fines for your company, or even products getting banned in certain markets.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure. It's like they need to be a packaging lawyer on top of everything else.
You're not wrong. And then, of course, there's understanding all the materials themselves. Cardboard, plastic, bioplastics, they each have their pros and cons. Knowing how they'll hold up under different conditions, that's crucial.
Can you give us an example? What's something that might surprise our listeners about this material science aspect of the job?
Sure, think about those meal kits everyone loves. A packaging production manager, they were likely involved in choosing the insulation that keeps your food at a safe temperature. But they're also thinking about how that material will break down in your compost bin later on.
Wow, I have to admit, I never thought about the compostability of those insulated liners. There's this constant push and pull, isn't there, between keeping the product safe and minimizing waste.
100%. That's why knowing how different materials are manufactured is so important. They need to understand how those materials are cut, molded, printed, which processes are most efficient and cost-effective, and of course, which align with the company's sustainability goals.
It's about bridging the gap between that initial design, the materials they choose, and what actually happens on the factory floor. But even with a well-designed package, doesn't the unboxing experience itself play a huge role in how a customer feels about a brand?
It's massive, especially with social media. That first impression when someone opens your package, it's basically free marketing.
We've all seen those unboxing videos online. Sometimes a really well-designed, eco-friendly package, it's almost as exciting as the product itself.
That's exactly right. So packaging production managers are thinking more and more about that emotional response their packaging creates. How can they get that wow moment, but also make it clear that the brand cares about the environment?
So it's not enough to just prevent damage anymore. Now it's about creating an experience, telling a story, all through something as simple as a cardboard box.
Exactly. Take a company like Patagonia. They're all about environmentalism, right?
Yeah.
And their packaging shows it. They use minimal materials. It's all recycled content. And they often print messages right on the box encouraging people to reuse it or recycle it.
It's a great example of how packaging can do double duty as a way to communicate a brand's values. So for people already working as packaging production managers, or even those just starting out, how do they stay ahead of the curve in such a fast-changing field?
Never stop learning. That's key. Industry conferences like Pack Expo, those are super valuable. You get to see the latest tech in action robotic packaging systems, new sustainable materials you've never even heard of, and you get to meet other professionals facing the same challenges you are.
It's about immersing yourself in the industry, getting inspired by what others are doing, maybe even doing a little recruiting while you're at it.
For sure. And even beyond the big events, there are tons of online resources. Professional organizations like the Institute of Packaging Professionals, for example. You get access to industry journals. They have webinars, even mentorship programs.
Mentorship,
Yeah.
that's huge. Sometimes having someone with more experience to bounce ideas off of or to help you navigate the industry, it's invaluable.
I agree, and it's not a one-way street. The field is always evolving, so even seasoned professionals can learn a lot from newcomers with fresh perspectives. It's a really exciting time to be in packaging, especially with so much innovation happening, all driven by new technology and, of course, this growing awareness of our environmental impact.
And speaking of impact, for any of our listeners who are just beginning to explore this career path, what's the most important piece of advice you would give them?
My biggest suggestion, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty, literally. Go visit some production facilities, see the materials firsthand, understand how those designs you create on your computer actually translate to the real world.
Nothing beats seeing the whole process in action. From that initial concept to actually holding the finished package in your hand, that's how you really grasp the challenges and the rewards of this line of work. It's more than just a job. It's about creative problem solving, pushing the boundaries of what's possible, and ultimately contributing to a more sustainable future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of the packaging production manager. It's been fascinating to uncover all the hidden complexities of a job that most of us take for granted, but rely on every single day.
I've really enjoyed sharing these insights with you and your listeners.
The pleasure was all ours, and for our listeners, if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and you're thinking about exploring this career path further, don't forget about RoleCatcher. They've got your back, whether it's helping you identify your strengths, prepare for those high-pressure interviews, or ultimately land your dream job in this exciting and constantly evolving field. And their interview prep, it's next level. They use AI to give you feedback, right? It's like having a robot career coach analyzing your every word.
It's really amazing. It can tell you if your answers are strong and to the point, or if they need some work. It can even give feedback on your body language, which is so important in an interview. It's like having a personal coach who can pinpoint your weak spots and help you refine your pitch.
Okay, that's incredible, especially in such a competitive job market. As we wrap up, I'm curious, what's the biggest misconception people have about this line of work?
I think a lot of people still see it as simply putting products in boxes, but it is so much more dynamic than that. A good packaging production manager, they're part detective, uncovering potential problems in the supply chain, part artist, creating those incredible unboxing experiences we all love, and more, they're becoming sustainability champions within their companies.
It's a job with real tangible impact. You're not just pushing paper. You could be preventing tons of waste, influencing how consumers think about their own consumption, even advancing material science.
Exactly. And as online shopping continues to grow, and as environmental concerns become more and more urgent, the decisions made by these packaging production managers, they're going to have a ripple effect way beyond the warehouse.
It's the perfect field for creative problem solvers, for people who love a challenge, and for anyone who wants to make a real difference, one package at a time. So to all our listeners out there, the next time you open that new phone or that cool new shirt that came in a totally sustainable package, take a second to think about the people working behind the scenes to make it happen. They're the unsung heroes of the packaging world, and their jobs are only getting more important as we move toward a more sustainable and interconnected future. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of the packaging production manager. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, never stop asking questions. And their interview prep sounds super interesting. They have that whole AI feedback system, right? Like a robot career coach listening to every and like in your answers.
It's really something. It's not just about catching those little things, though. RoleCatcher's AI can actually analyze your answers, see where you can be more impactful, even look at your body language during a mock interview.
Wow, that is next level prep. As we wrap up here, I'm curious, what's the biggest misconception people have about this career path?
A lot of people, they still think it's all about putting products in boxes, but it's so much more than that. It's dynamic, you're solving problems, like a detective spotting weaknesses in the supply chain. Then there's the creativity of crafting those unboxing experiences everyone loves. And on top of that, you're often the one pushing for sustainability within the company.
It's not just a desk job, that's for sure. You can have a real impact. You're potentially preventing tons of waste, influencing consumers, maybe even changing how we think about materials in the future.
Exactly. And with e-commerce growing every year, environmental concerns becoming more and more important, the choices these packaging production managers make, they have ripple effects way beyond just one company.
It's the perfect career for someone who wants to solve problems, who isn't afraid of a challenge, and for those who really want to make a difference, one package at a time. So, to all our listeners out there, next time you get a delivery, take a second to think about the folks working behind the scenes. They're the unsung heroes of the packaging world, and what they do is only getting more important as we move toward a more sustainable future. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of the packaging production manager. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and never be afraid to ask questions.